Hello everyone, welcome to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
It's time once again for another DVD commentary podcast. And if you haven't listened to one of these with us before, let me remind everybody what we do with these. So this is going to be both a commentary and a podcast. The idea is that you can watch the film while listening to us talking, or you can just listen to us talk without the film, and we will provide as much context as we can for what we're looking at on the screen while we're talking about things on the screen. But this is going to be a full podcast, the length of the movie, and we're going to be using what we're watching on the screen to facilitate conversation. Today we're going to be watching Star Trek. We're going to be watching J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek movie. And Sarah, are you excited?
I am excited.
It's been a while since you've seen this.
I don't think I've actually seen this since the theater.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see how this goes then. We thought about going ahead and starting with motion picture or one of the earlier films, and we are planning on, Sarah and I, if this goes well, we are planning on going back and doing all of the Star Trek films, I think.
Yes, indeed.
We think that would be a lot of fun for the Treksperts folks. And we decided to go ahead and start with this movie because people have been asking us a lot lately to talk more about the Star Trek movie, and we did a video about it early on when we first started doing Treksperts, but it's been a long time. I have some kind of new feelings about the film even since then. I seem to have a different experience with it every time I see it.
Your mood just oscillates depending on the alignment of the stars and...
Yeah, exactly. Where the dilithium crystals are.
Yeah.
So anyway...
How much dark matter is near your position currently?
So we're going to go ahead and start the movie. If you are going to watch the film with us, and you have your DVD in your player, and you have your menu screen up, I want you to press the play button right now. Parents are strongly cautioned, Sarah.
Yes, indeed, for sci-fi action and violence and brief sexual content. I wonder where that one was.
Yeah, it wasn't the token thing that was in the trailer, was it?
How about all the token things that were in the trailer?
They gave you ample time to read that.
Yeah, they did. I mean, you could even consider it.
I want to start off right away by saying that one of my favorite things about this movie is the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's a very good soundtrack. But I think Star Trek has been very good in general about their soundtracks.
Yeah, but this, of course, is by someone who's never done Star Trek before, and so you never know what the soundtrack is going to be when you have it totally new.
It could be the Enterprise theme song. You don't even know.
Well, or it could sound exactly like Lost, which it kind of does.
But that's not really bad, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. And actually, it fits this material quite well.
Yeah, it does.
I was really surprised by it. But I think this melody is gorgeous.
Yeah, especially when they're stuck on the planet and they have to figure out where the others are. I'm kidding.
I find the soundtrack wonderful. It's a little creepy, in the places that it needs to be. It's another one of those soundtracks where the villain theme is a little better than the villain himself, which is we'll get there. But I will say right away I'm not a big fan of what's done with Nero. It's not that I don't like the idea of Nero. I just don't think that.
It's just he has no depth and very little motive, and we'll get to that.
So.
Wow, is that actually one to sell?
One to sell with the Kelvin, yeah.
Yeah, so if that one goes kaput, you're just gone.
I guess so. I don't know if what's on top of it is supposed to be another one, but I think it is just one to sell.
Yeah, all these we've progressed so much in the next couple of years that we've decided 2 is better than 1. Backup systems are good.
Yeah, we based our starship design on Klingon anatomy. So, how do you feel about the lens flare? Let's just go right into the lens flare, because you get it out the gate.
Honestly, the first time I was in the theater, this might sound really bad.
You didn't notice it?
I didn't notice it. For me, it was just part of the atmosphere, part of the ambiance, and I just don't notice technical things about atmosphere. I feel the atmosphere as I'm watching the movie, but it's all part of the plot. For me, my focus has always been very much on plot and what's happening on screen, and not so much about the elements that go into making that.
You have a tendency not even to notice soundtrack very much.
I don't. I really don't. I'll get through a movie and Jay will be like, "Hey, how was that soundtrack?" And I'm just, "Oh, what soundtrack? I thought the movie was great."
That's Captain Logan, for those of you that don't know my real name.
Oops.
There's a little tidbit. No, that's all right. You're not the first and you won't be the last. I think the design for the Kelvin is wonderful. I think that it looks more 24th century than I would have expected. I mean, it certainly has a little bit of a Constitution feel to it, even though it's got the one to sell. Mm-hmm. But it reminded me of some, if not 24th century ships, some like movie type ships.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I do like its design in here. And while I'm thinking about it, that one point where the guy gets blown out into space and it suddenly goes silent, mm-hmm. I did, for the record, notice that in the theater and loved it.
It's great.
I do like how this movie has the ability to go from complete dead silence and then all the way, at various points in the movie, all the way up to very loud.
It's wonderfully effective.
I do like that.
I agree with you. I think... What was I talking about? I mentioned something.
The ship design?
Yeah, the ship design.
Of the Kelvin?
When we first saw this, because I was careful before we came into the theater not to know too much about this before we came in. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew, well, that's going to sound silly. If you go back and listen to some of our early podcasts, I did talk about it quite a bit before it came out, but there were a few things I wanted to know. I was trying to figure out whether or not it was going to be a sequel that took place in the past. That was the big thing I was excited about. But as far as, like, the Kelvin and who was on it and all that kind of stuff, I was trying not to get too much spoilers about specifics. We knew a little bit about the Kelvin before coming in, and I had heard of the name of the ship, but I didn't know that it was Kirk's ship. I didn't know that it was Kirk's father's ship.
Right.
And so when the first time I saw this, and maybe I'm crazy, but for the first couple minutes, I thought we were in 24th century. I had no idea that we were in the past yet. Already, until Nero comes on screen.
Yeah, and fair enough, and I think I wasn't really even thinking about it. I was just taking it in. Okay, we're at a ship, we don't know where we are, we don't know when we are, what's happening. And I was just waiting for the next thing to happen.
Maybe that was expectations on my part. I was hoping very much that we would get some 24th century before we went back to 23rd.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't get that, and that was disappointing for me.
Right. Yeah.
I would have liked to have gotten some setup for Nero before we went back in time, had we had the time to do it.
Yeah, no, that would have been nice, especially since he isn't very developed at all in this film, and we get a little bit about his backstory. But it would have been nice to have actual. This is what happened to him. Yeah.
I also think it might have been good for the audience, and one of the things that this film gets a lot of praise for, of course, from just straight regular audiences who aren't familiar with Star Trek, is I can watch this without knowing Star Trek. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a reboot, and so I don't have to know anything, and it treats itself like that, and I agree with that.
Yes.
However, if a person, and this isn't anything against anybody, but if a person is not just laying back and enjoying this for the action and is actually thinking about what's going on. And I'm not saying that people weren't doing that, but I think that for a lot of folks, they felt like they didn't have to.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And
right.
It's still a very, very enjoyable film. So don't get me wrong on that. I'm just saying that for people who are trying to really figure out what's going on in this movie, who don't know Star Trek, it would have been really nice to have had a little bit of background from Unification.
Yes.
Because that's where old Spock comes from. A lot of people watching this don't realize that the whole Romulan exploding thing is, and the fact that Spock is there is a direct
result from Unification.
Yes. One of the things I like about the movie is
and
that they use Unification Spock.
And so you can't possibly get the depth and understand the depth of the relationship between Spock and the Romulans and what was going on with the politics and all that just by being a one-time viewer. And of course you couldn't get the richness and the depth that you would if you had watched all of TNG and all the movies and all that stuff. But I mean, it'd be nice if a little bit more of it was there, so that maybe somebody who on a second viewing maybe could pick it up.
That's what I think. Because you could even complain that it feels contrived without that background. Why is it Spock?
Yeah.
Of all the people it could possibly have been, why does Spock get to live all the way into latter TNG era and beyond?
Yeah.
Why is he around Romulus when it explodes? Why is he even involved in this?
Yeah.
And why does Nero want him dead over anybody else?
Exactly.
That is background that we needed, and it's not provided here.
Right. And I know people may dog on me for this, but comic books don't count.
Comic books don't
count for background.
But I I will put another plug in for Countdown. It was a great comic book. I wish that it had been canon. I don't wish the comic had been canon. I wish that some of the things they put in the comic were in this movie.
Sure.
And I will point out a few of those things as we go along.
Yes.
One of them is that we get that 24th century background. We get the relationship between him and Nero, which is actually, and I'll point this out later, it's actually contradicted in this movie, a lot of what they did in the comic, which is unfortunate, because what the movie does is less interesting.
Yeah.
But also, like, Spock's ship, we find out, was built by Geordie LaForge. It's some really neat stuff like
that is really neat.
that I don't think would have taken away from this movie. I think that it still would have been watchable by people who didn't know anything about Star Trek with a little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
Although people might argue with me about that, where they're like, well, don't throw in these other future characters because that connects it too much to...
But to somebody who's watching it for the first time, those would seem like throwaway names. You know?
Yeah, I'm saying, exactly.
I mean,
I'm saying give us mentions, not necessarily put it on screen.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, if you want to simplify it down to the bare bones minimum, why do we have so many characters in this movie at all? Isn't that too complicated for modern audiences?
Fair enough. Sure.
I mean,
except that the movie thinks that anything that's in the public consciousness, in the periphery, is fair game for this movie because it's all cultural relevant. It's all like, I'm sorry. It's all like, I'm always freaked out by this alien's eyeballs. By the way, the lady that's delivering Kirk, she's got these giant eye. I love that.
Giant slanty eyes.
I love that alien design. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really feel like a lot of the point of this movie was to make big pop culture references. And you need all those characters because it makes an audience go, ooh, I know who Uhura is, and I've heard of Chekhov, and I've heard of Sulu.
But then you get things like Kirk's dad, you get his brother, you get Pike. I mean, Pike's not really in the public consciousness.
No, but somebody's got to be the captain of the ship before Kirk takes over.
Sure. And
you might as well make it something that Trekkies or that at least Trekkies have heard of before.
But I'm just saying that you know, if you're willing to go that far, it makes sense that somebody built Spock's ship. We don't. If you're a general audience who doesn't know Star Trek,
the name.
You don't need to know who it is, but just give us the name.
Let me stop you for a second and say that this is one of those rare places where slow motion is really, really welcome.
Yeah.
I love this scene quite a bit. I feel like Abrams does a really good job often of, this is a very Lost kind of scene, by the way. Abrams does a really good job as a director making us care about characters just by giving us visuals of them and them doing very human kinds of things, of characters that we don't get for very long.
Yeah, and if you think about it...
I don't know anything about this guy, but I'm sad he's about to die.
Yeah, and the perception of this character, when you're in this sort of situation, time slows down for you. So in a way, he's putting us in that guy's seat, and we're experiencing this very intense moment with him, where he's about to die, he knows he's about to die, but his wife's also having his first kid.
I think that this is very touching, where she tries to name him Tiberius.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't like Tiberius. He thinks it's awful, so he names him. But he names it after her father.
Yeah.
And that's where Jim comes from. I think all of that is great.
Yeah.
Having said that, do you find it unlikely that in this day and age they would wait that long to name their kid?
Yeah, that was kind of weird to me. But I mean, I guess people do that nowadays, and that's always been weird. You know, you're having a kid, just pick a boy name, pick a girl name, and you're good either way. But you don't need technology to know that you're having a baby.
I think that there are a lot of things, and we'll get into it, that don't work about the future impacting the past plot. And as Trekkies, I am sure that we will mention some things throughout this movie that will sound like complete and utter nitpicks, and who cares, to some of the folks listening that might not be big Star Trek fans.
Sure.
Having said that, one of the things I really love about it is that Nero going back in time directly impacts Kirk's life in a hugely profound way that would make him an entirely different character.
Yes, and I think that is very necessary just to pull this whole movie together.
Well, and actually I said entirely different. He's not entirely different. Well, but he's different enough.
He's different enough. He has a much different past, and I don't think he'd be, driving a car recklessly down the street if his dad had still been alive.
You hate this scene. Explain why.
I hate this scene. Well, okay, first of all, he's in a car. What? Why is he
with gasoline?
Okay, are we in the future or are we not in the future? And I just think it's so weird that he has a car. Would there even be any gas stations around here? Plus, I don't like kids being stupid. I just don't like scenes of, especially kids who are going to grow up to be our main characters. It's completely unnecessary. Okay, so he's reckless when he's a kid. When the movie starts, or when the actual plot of the movie starts, he's a lot older. And this really does... People change so much from childhood to adulthood.
I would say that giving them this kind of reckless background, maybe the idea is that it's supposed to, tell us a little bit about why he's so all over the place in the future. How he doesn't have direction.
Yeah.
He's also he's looking for adventure, and that's Kirk.
Yeah.
And I will say that they got that right about this. I should also probably point out that Sarah also really hates Rage Against the Machine.
I do. And that, so that's another thing where I don't actually acknowledge the atmosphere, but the atmosphere totally plays into me liking or disliking a scene.
So, is Earth in this reality a utopia?
By this scene, no. Especially when there's a policeman on every corner, apparently.
I do.
In Iowa.
I do, in a way, like the idea that
And
Abrams...
is there a cliff in Iowa?
That's a good point.
When did that happen?
Whoa. Yeah, good point. What happened there? Was there an alien ship crash?
That's some crazy strip mining right there.
I never even thought of that, Sarah. That's hilarious.
I've been to Iowa, and it doesn't look like that.
Although that's obviously a man-made thing. Like, you gotta wonder...
I don't know.
Something happened
That looks like
there.
Xindi weapon.
Maybe the Xindi weapon hit there, and surely they're not thinking...
It went from the Gulf of Mexico through Florida, killing Trip's sister, all the way through Iowa.
And then just took a U-turn and went to Iowa. I'll give it this. I do like that Abrams puts the whole Utopia business somewhat in the background. That's going too far with it.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I'm just saying that,
That's more like dystopia. I mean, maybe not.
No, not
so
dystopia.
far.
That's ridiculous.
But okay,
one
so the
dude has a combustion engine car and drives around, and you call it a dystopia.
And he has a broken family, dysfunctional family raised by somebody who hates him, and he gets pulled over by police. So you're almost thinking, okay, Earth is a police state. If you're new to Trek and have never seen this, that's your first glimpse of Earth.
That is a really good point. Just that they don't give us anything else from that until we get to Starfleet stuff.
Yeah, so that's your glimpse of Earth, and everything else is from Starfleet perspective, which is totally different.
We were supposed to have more scenes, I think, about, and I think that there actually is another there's a deleted scene.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to get some stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know just where your head's going.
Yes.
We were supposed to get some stuff about Kirk's a deadbeat uncle or whatever,
yeah,
and all of that, and we didn't get it, and I think that would have helped solidify all that more. I think that part of this is they're trying to give us a juxtaposition between what Spock is at this age and Kirk is at this age, and then they jump them ahead.
Yeah.
Whether that works or not, yeah, but that's what they're doing. So, what's so funny about the scenes?
They pulled it from the animated series, almost. Well, maybe not verbatim.
Well,
but
not verbatim.
But the scene is in there where they're making fun of him for being part human, and then he ends up fighting with them.
For the record, in the animated series, they don't call his mother a whore, but other than that...
I don't think you could get away with that in the 70s.
No,
in a cartoon show.
Well, I don't think you could have gotten away with that in TOS, but I like the green blood on the lip.
Yep.
After he gets beaten up by those guys and he's talking to Sarek. I'm okay with that scene, though.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was a little out of nowhere for me in the theater, but now, especially since I've watched the animated series episode, it's a little bit funnier.
I've always appreciated the idea, and this was the point of that animated series episode, actually. What we're talking about is Yesteryear. It's this episode where Spock has to go back in time and save himself, but with the Guardian Forever and everything. Anyway, you can check it out on Netflix if you have Netflix. But so... The point of that episode was Vulcans have emotions, they just bury emotions. It's not that they don't have the ability to experience emotions, and that's an idea I've always really, really appreciated with Vulcans, and I think that this movie does a good job of capturing that.
And I think so
I don't feel like these are Enterprise Vulcans.
No, they're not, and that's one thing I did appreciate. After we had Enterprise, I was worried that Vulcans would be all screwed up all the time forever, and they would just be these crazy, I have emotions, and I'm pretending I don't have emotions, but it's obvious that everyone I come in contact with, I'm just a little bit irritated with.
I do think Vulcan kids would have a really hard time controlling their emotions.
I think so too,
as well as the adults.
And especially
I think they would get in fist fights and things.
And especially when they're, half human, like Spock.
Yeah, and I was going to say, when the full Vulcans have to deal with somebody like Spock.
Yeah. So, and it's really weird to see Vulcan kids who can find a logical component to racism, if you think about it.
Yes.
In their mind, I mean, why would you torment somebody if you are logical? Well, they come up with a, quote-unquote, logical reason. Yeah,
and they approach it like Vulcans, and then they beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I think Winona Ryder is a fantastic pick for Amanda Grayson. I think that she's completely underused.
Yeah, I wish we could have seen more of her and Sarek, actually. I really liked both of them in this movie, and I thought they both got very good dialogue, and I was really... maybe they wouldn't have fit in very much more than they are in this movie,
maybe
but
not.
It got me wanting to see more of them.
Yeah, which is good. That means that the performances were good, and the dialogue was good. They felt very much like Amanda and Sarek to me.
Yeah, I think my favorite scenes are on Vulcan.
With the exception of the destruction of it?
I mean, just the culture of Vulcan. I think they really do a good job.
I think they nailed it.
Making Vulcan real to me.
I'll say that, and that's part of the problem with destroying it, is that they seem to like Vulcan, and they seem to have a good sense of how to do it. I wanted to see more of it.
Yeah.
And then, destroying it kind of comes out of left field in a lot of ways, but again, we'll get there. I think that these sets are great. I think all of this looks... this looks like Vulcan. This architecture is kind of what I would expect, but they took some liberties with it. But it looks great. In places, it reminds me a little bit of Krypton. Not that it's like icy or anything, but just that it's very complicated. There's a lot of...
Vulcan is hot, not icy.
Yes, I'm aware, but I just mean that. Well, there's a lot of beams there's a lot of intersecting beams. I guess is part of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, the more complex geometric shapes than you'd find on Earth.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the idea that they... What do you think of that scene with Spock, deciding to go to Starfleet and everything?
I thought it was a good move for him. I don't know, it's just, he needs to figure out if he's going to be human or Vulcan, and so...
I guess what I meant was, does it bug you that even the adult Vulcans are kind of against him because he's half Vulcan?
Isn't he the first one, though? Like, first half Vulcan?
I was never sure in the original series if he was supposed to be the first and only one. Or not. It was certainly unusual.
Yeah, it may be that they just don't know what to do with him, really. I mean,
Sure.
It's hard to find the logic in a path when it's the first time it's happened. And, I mean, we don't know for sure, I guess, if he's the first one in this continuity here, but...
Well, here's a geeky, trekkie question. Are you okay with the fact that this movie goes with kind of the traditional movie idea of using a bunch of random aliens we've never seen before? Or would you have preferred some more that we recognize?
I would have preferred some more that we recognize, simply because there are so many that were done in the TV shows that have names, that have backgrounds, that we know things about, and we could point to them and say, hey, look, I know that.
Put them in the background.
Put them in the background.
You could do some we've never seen.
I don't think it's a problem to do some we've never seen, but... I mean, if all you do is, okay, you have your token Vulcans, you have your token Orion slave girl, it's just not satisfying enough as a fan of the show, as a fan of the television series.
I agree with you. I mean that one of the things that Trek always was quite different with Wars is that there were some random throwaway aliens, but most species we got names for in the like actually inside of the continuity,
right?
As opposed to something that somebody had to tell us later in something else. Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the things I always really liked about Star Trek.
Yeah.
So Kirk gets in a giant bar fight.
Yeah, I could totally see Kirk doing that, but I'm not sure if it works for me here.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just... It just seemed to be a little bit forced to me. But, like I said, last time I saw this was, I think, in the theater, so I don't remember exactly how this got started.
I do feel like it's one of those kind of generic, somebody called you a name, you called him a name, you know what I mean? Because he's hitting on Uhura and they don't like that.
Yeah.
One of my kind of issues with this movie is that it's funny because every scene serves a purpose, which is good.
Yeah.
The problem is, a lot of the time they serve, I feel like, and this is maybe not fair, a lot of the time I feel like they serve the purpose to try to tell us to feel a certain way about something without giving us quite enough background for it.
Yeah.
Without giving us quite enough time with the characters for it. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
It's like you have a lot of scenes that are that are symbolic of something, indicative of something. Kirk is a fighter. Kirk is a loner.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk doesn't have a path, and we show you these things with like a single scene of this is the thing he does that tells you that and lets you know about that. And I think the problem is that with Star Trek, I'm used to getting to know the characters more than that.
Yeah. No, that's right. That makes a lot of sense. I think you're putting into words what I feel when I watch scenes like this. And I think another problem with it, carrying over from the last time we saw Kirk in a scene, is Earth a utopia or not?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so the first time we see Kirk on Earth, he's driving a car off the cliff being chased by the police. And
Second time he gets in a giant bar fight.
He gets in a giant bar fight, and he barely does anything to start it. So, I don't know. It just seems like people are just as violent and people are just as into breaking the law in the future here.
And just as into drinking and getting drunk and
as we are today. So where's the hope and future in that?
It's tough to walk the line between being optimistic and giving people something recognizable. And I think that's part of what Abrams is struggling with here.
And I think he's really struggling with it because, in part, he's not giving his audience enough credit. Just because something looks different than what we're experiencing right now in this time period.
By the way, I love him holding the model of his father's ship.
Yeah.
And stuff right there. I mean, I'm just like, we get some great character moments.
Yeah, we do.
And these are people I like. I just want to throw that out there. I do really care about these people.
Yeah, but it's so hard because you want to like these characters, and you're given a lot of reasons to like these characters, but there are a lot of things that are thrown in this movie that are just to try to bring the stupid audience up to speed. You know what I mean? Where it's just dumbing things down, and I don't think it needs to.
No, and the problem is it's difficult in retrospect to tell if it had to do that or not. Because it made a lot more money than anybody expected it to.
That's true.
And a lot of people point to the fact that it was such a commercial kind of film.
But I don't think...
And commercial films do that. Movies like this give you everything in the least common denominator.
Yeah, but that doesn't make for very great movies. It might make for a good movie, but not the great, fantastic movies that you really...
Again, I think this is a really fun movie. I just find it to be not the best thinking kind of movie.
Right.
And that's what I want in Star Trek.
And I don't think you have to have the Enterprise built on Earth to bring your audience along.
I don't think so either. And the problem is, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I've argued with people who are not big Star Trek fans who say that's a big nitpick. You just don't like it. Again, I'm always harping on source material things, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, him running into the low clearance thing right there is great.
Yeah,
because that's right out of Star Trek V.
Yeah,
when Scotty does it. I don't know if that was on purpose, whether it was intentional or not. It's a great callback.
Yeah.
But anyway, I harp on this source material stuff a lot. Mm-hmm. It is not that I'm mad about it because it's not what my Star Trek, air quotes, did.
Right.
With regards to where the ship is built. It's that it physically doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, how does it take off? How do you get it into space out of the Earth's atmosphere?
How does it work? It's not a ship that lands. How does it take off? Did you build it to take off the one time?
Yeah. It's just weird. It's you'd expend so much more energy building it on Earth and then getting it up into space that it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, it doesn't make it doesn't make any sense. And again, it seems like the science fiction in this film is in the background.
Yeah.
Science fiction is the background of this movie, and we're not supposed to think about those things.
Yeah, and for me, personally, Star Trek is about the science fiction. The more science fiction is pushed to the forefront, the more of a hard science fiction story it is, the more I'm apt to like it.
Right.
And I don't need
people,
it, but it makes it much better.
What a lot of people have argued is that that didn't like Star Trek, and what a lot of jokes have been made about Star Trek in regards to this film is that this finally gave us a Star Trek that wasn't boring for a lot of people. That's what people say. And so people have this idea that you can either have real science fiction or you can have fun. And there's nothing in between.
And that's just
ridiculous.
Not true.
Watch Wrath of Khan. Very fun film.
Yes, and very, very science fiction.
Now, am I going to say that there aren't a bunch of super boring episodes of Star Trek? No, that would be ridiculous for me to say. There are some really boring episodes of Star Trek.
Indeed.
I find certain things less boring than other people do, but you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So we talked right over the entrance of Bones there. I think that's actually quite a good scene.
It's a very good scene, and I really like the way Bones is portrayed in this movie.
He's wonderful, and they give us a couple of huge things. We'll talk about Nero here in a minute. We get our first big picture of Nero here. By the way, with part of his ear missing, we don't know why or how that happened. If one of the scenes had been put back in that got taken out, we would actually already know why that happened. Because there's a scene of him on Rurapente, and we know that he went. And there's a mention of Rurapente later, and so we know what happened. Here, it's totally random. It's like, oh, now he's missing an ear.
Yeah, because he's evil. That's all the reason you need. He's all messed up because he's evil. But
anyway, I will say Eric Bana is great in this role. I just don't think it's a very good role. But anyway, let me go back a second. Bones. I don't care for the fact that they have to come up with a new reason that his name is Bones. I mean, that his nickname is Bones, because that was in TOS. That was a common thing that doctors were called. And that's kind of fallen out of popularity these days. And old Sawbones. It's a very old reference. And again, we're trying to bring the new people in who don't know that stuff. So we have to update everything.
Right. And so the nickname can't come from the same place that it came from originally, because the culture just isn't there to support it.
Yeah, and I think it could have. I would have still been okay with it. Whatever. Yeah. The thing is, I never knew until just a few years ago where Bones came from in the first place. I didn't need to know. I didn't have to know that. Yeah. But the way they do it is not terrible.
Yeah.
What I do love is that they do two huge things that are indicative of old McCoy's character. One, he gets space sick, and two, he has this past with a wife that left him, and that actually was something that was supposed to be in an episode that got taken out.
Oh, really?
Of TOS, yeah. So they're actually borrowing from some stuff that never made it, which I love. I don't, however, love this.
No.
With the Orion slave girl, or the Orion, the green girl that I suppose is supposed to be an Orion.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's not named as an Orion, but obviously, what else would she be? And why is she in Starfleet? Are they even part of the Federation?
No, not that I know, because they're space pirates.
Yeah. So how did that happen?
When you hear Abrams talk about this, of course he's not a giant Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
He's much more of a Star Wars fan. You can tell when he talks about this that he would have preferred to have made a Star Wars movie, but this is what he got, so he found a way to kind of throw a little bit of wars in there. Well, maybe a lot of wars. We'll get into that too.
Yeah.
He'll say things like the Green Girl. He doesn't even know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he had writers who would have known who Orions were.
Yeah.
They knew enough to go back to Unification. They would have known what Orions were.
Yeah. And Orion just doesn't work in Starfleet.
No.
And I think, again, it's just, okay, we want to show that Kirk is handy with the ladies, so of course the only girl that will have him in Starfleet is an Orion slave girl.
The reason they... No, it's even more simple than that.
Yeah.
It's even more dumbed down than that. It's... Again, and I think I could point to a ton of stuff in this that where this is the excuse for why they do it the way they do it. In the public consciousness, Kirk sleeps with green women. That's one of the things we remember about TOS is the whole. And I'm not sure ever in TOS there even is a point where he sleeps with green women.
I think
but
in
that's one of those
God's
things
Destroy,
that
he gets close, but that's it. That's all I know.
there are a bunch of things that people think they know about Star Trek that didn't actually happen in Star Trek, but just became kind of a thing culturally. And again, one of them is that green women, Kirk and green women. You know I'm right about this. This is something that people say. Beam me up, Scotty is another one.
Yeah,
that's actually a line that never is uttered anywhere. Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't say beam me up all the time, but just beam me up, Scotty. I do. Okay, we should totally. I'm sorry, we're talking over Kobayashi Maru. We need to talk about this.
Yeah.
What is the problem with how they handle Kobayashi Maru?
Well, why don't you talk some more about this? Because it's been a while since I've seen this.
Okay, I couldn't remember. Well, the thing is, I think that part of the deal with this is something that you explained to me at one point, which is the reason I was going to hand that over to you.
Yeah.
First of all, does it bother you that Spock came up with the Kobayashi Maru?
Yeah, that does bother me. How much older is Spock? He doesn't seem like he's that far up in command, and it doesn't seem like it would take a Vulcan to come up with a test like this, and plus it's a test about experiencing fear, and Vulcans don't experience fear.
Yeah.
So
none of that really makes a lot of sense.
It just felt kind of weird, and it just seems to be very simplistic that Spock's the one who came up with it.
It is simplistic.
Why does it matter who came up with it, except to give Spock and Kirk something to fight about?
And also, and I won't go too in depth into this, but the Kobayashi Maru simply here is interpreted differently than how it was in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
It seems like a much simpler problem, and it doesn't actually seem like a no-win scenario.
No, it doesn't. And I'm trying to think, I think that the point originally wasn't. It's not how you handle fear. It's just how do you handle being faced with a no-win situation.
With a no-win situation, yeah.
And so
the whole experiencing fear thing I think is kind of dopey actually.
Yeah.
Now I do like that they talk about the no-win scenario, and they have Kirk say I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
Yeah.
That's something he of course has hugely in common with his Prime Universe counterpart.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure I like how it just seems like it was very easy to cheat the test. I mean, it seems like okay, so all I had to do was cross a couple wires, go in there, and as long as I am, I win, that makes it okay.
And no one else would have ever thought of that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like it was a little bit more clever and more complicated when they talked about it in Wrath of Khan.
Well, and one of the things that worked about it with Wrath of Khan is that you didn't have all the details.
Yeah.
You didn't need all the details. Here they actually show it to you, and it's not something that you can that once we've seen it we're as impressed by. Yeah. So if you're going to actually show it, it's got to blow you away somehow.
Yeah, it's got to be big and major, and you'd be thinking, if I were sitting in that chair, I wouldn't want to go through that test.
You have to say only Kirk would have come up with that.
Yeah, and
I don't buy that.
I mean, especially since he's so casual about it, eating the apple. I mean, it's just so over the top.
Yeah, it is hugely over the top. And in the theater, it was fun, it was clever. I was chuckling at it, sure. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think that maybe fear does play into it a little bit. You have. I mean, I guess.
Well, I think you would naturally experience fear in a no-win situation, but I don't think that's
the question is whether or not it paralyzes you, though. But
I don't think it's the point of the test, though. I mean, I think it's just a thing in how you react under pressure, and there's no way out.
But the pressure. But I mean, fear is part of that pressure.
Right.
Do you buckle under that pressure?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you have to experience fear in order to experience the test.
Oh, good point. Is that Spock's trying to say that Kirk's not going to make it as a Starfleet officer because he refuses to acknowledge that he has fear.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Does Spock acknowledge that he has fear? He
yeah,
like it.
I have a tough time with that too. And also Kirk has every reason to be quite a bit different here than he would have been had his father survived.
That's
and
true.
than he was in the Prime universe. Spock has no excuse.
Right. He was born...
What would have changed Spock?
Yeah.
Nothing about Nero going back in the past changed Spock, and we have to, as we're watching this, we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That if anything is changed, and again, I don't want to nitpick and make huge deals out of stuff, but when we're talking about major character changes, sweeping character changes, the whole premise of this film is it's rebooted out of something that happened because of the future.
Yes.
Nero goes back in time and changes things. If anything major is changed in this because Abrams is taking creative license that doesn't happen as a direct result of Nero, I'm going to have a problem with it.
Yeah. Especially if it's not as good or not as effective as it was the first time around.
Exactly. So for instance, Spock should be pretty much the same at this point. All the stuff that happened on Vulcan, I would assume happened in original continuity, and it all works for me. But the point that you can start changing Spock is when he meets a Kirk that's different.
Yeah. From
what he would have been had his father still been alive. Keep in mind, that's the big difference with this Kirk, is that he didn't have a father to bring him up and to follow in his footsteps. But he still is at the core the same person. And all of that is working. And then also, the destruction of Spock's planet.
Yeah.
That changes him.
Yeah.
And so, that's why Abrams put that in there. He uses Kirk and Spock as the dual protagonists in this movie, and kind of puts McCoy in the background.
Yeah.
We don't have the triad we had in TOS here. We have Kirk and we have Spock. And McCoy's great, but he's not really part of we don't have the triad like we had.
Yeah.
So you've got Kirk. They parallel this where in the backstory, Kirk lost his father, and that changes him. But Spock's big, huge change because of Nero doesn't happen until really soon after all of what we're watching right now.
Right.
And so that's what makes those. That's what causes the friction in their friendship, is that they do have a lot of things in common, but they just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, that stuff's working okay.
Yeah. Now, see, they have this giant space base out there, and all these tiny ships around it.
Looks like you could build a ship with it.
You wouldn't build a ship. Well, it'd be easier to build a ship off of that than it would on Earth.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm just saying, okay, on the other side of the planet, you'd have this space base where the shipyards where you'd actually build the ships. What's the difference? What's harder to understand about a shipyard versus a space base?
I think the ship looks really great. I do like it. They didn't take too many creative liberties with it. It looks like the ship.
Yeah, it looks pretty.
It's sleeker. It's wider, and all that's okay with it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you like the design of the bridge?
It took me a whole long time to get used to, and I'm still not sure I'm used to it. It's very blue and white. And
a lot of people, when the images first came out, called it the eye bridge.
I can see that. Yeah. It almost looks like they should be going underwater instead of into space. But
should they be rebooting Sequest?
Yes! I want a talking... Well, it wouldn't be a talking dolphin in Star Trek.
I also wanted to talk a little bit about the advanced tech. They have a lot of three-dimensional monitors in this, where they give you something that looks kind of holographic, and you're touching it all up in the air and stuff, kind of like they did in The Matrix.
Yeah.
Do you like that? Is that okay with you? I think that they're trying really hard to make it feel futuristic from our
I think
standpoint.
That's the problem with either A, rebooting out of old continuity, or B, not going forward with Star Trek. Because to me, it takes me out of the movie as a Star Trek fan, saying, well, that's not anything like what the original series looked like. Or, I mean, at least the tech from the original series. It doesn't have to look like cardboard sets, but...
It doesn't feel like from here it would take 100 years to get holodecks.
Right. And so...
For instance.
You know, if this were a complete reboot, where they just said, okay, we've told too many stories, nobody's interested in the old stuff anymore.
And it's outdated to a point of absurdity.
We just can't do anything with it. We have to just redo the whole thing. Let's start with TOS and go on.
And if you take it just from a tech standpoint...
That makes sense. You know, I like the idea of saying, okay, we've advanced a lot since the 60s. What looks futuristic to us now? That's fine. But the problem is that, you know, since it's still within the old continuity, it doesn't work for the universe. And so it would make more sense if they had gone forward and used this tech, as opposed to going backwards and then trying to use this tech during a time period we know and have seen already.
I want to talk some more about what's actually been going on the last couple minutes, and then I want to get back to the whole whether or not rebooting out of original continuity even works at all. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, I want to say that I think that the warp effect is really cool here. I like the warp effect. I'm not a big fan of the beaming effect, but we'll talk about that. But I do like how they changed. Swirlies. Yeah, I do like how they changed the warp effect, though. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
I don't like that Pike says, I just feel like I have to say this, I don't like that Pike says punch it.
Yeah.
Because punch it is what Han Solo said.
Yeah.
And why do we have Star Wars homages in a Star Trek film? And Abrams thinks that it's really cool to have Star Wars homages in a Star Trek film.
Has he never heard of not that I am antagonistic towards Star Wars
I'm
fans,
not either.
but has he never heard of the friction between Star Wars fans and Star Trek fans? I mean,
do Star Wars fans really want Star Trek to be more like Star Wars either? There's that question.
Do Star Wars fans want Star Wars to be more like Star Trek?
Well, there you go. Sure.
I mean,
Fair enough.
if we get references, the next Wars film that comes out that Lucas puts out when he's 80, I want to see some Star Trek in there. I want them to be beaming.
That's hilarious. I wouldn't have even thought of it like that.
Star Wars fans would be up in arms if we started putting Trek tech in
see,
their films.
Yeah, and to some people, we Trek fans are supposed to be okay with it because our franchise was boring, and ultimately, science fiction is outdated and science fantasy is the way to go. I don't like that. I think that you can have exciting science fiction. I think we have had exciting science fiction.
I think exciting science fiction is all over the place.
Sure.
Just go back and watch some good science fiction movies. Not 2001: A Space Odyssey and not the motion picture.
Yeah.
Find some good science fiction. It's out there.
Again, Wrath of Khan is an exciting film.
Yes, it is.
And there are a lot of, and also there are a lot of great science fiction films that aren't just like flashy and super exciting.
The point is mental stimulation. You get your brain to thinking. You think, okay, well, what if this big thing happened? This Earth is different from our Earth, and what changed it? And is that good or is that bad? And how does that impact us?
We've also had giant action movies that are pretty solid science fiction movies. Let me throw that out there. Aliens is this way. The Matrix is this way.
Yeah.
The Matrix is pretty much just a giant friggin' action movie, but it's not science fantasy, it's science fiction.
Right. Exactly.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the sequels.
Well, you never should, really.
No, you like the sequels.
I love the sequels.
What are you talking about? You're the one that gives me crap for saying that.
Yeah, but it's funny to say that.
So, one of the things that I think always bugged you, and I wanted to ask you if you talk about this a little bit, is just that it's too convenient that all of our TOS characters are here all at the same time.
All at the same time, they're all assigned at the same time, and it's pretty much they're all cadets at the same time, really?
The majority of them.
Except for Spock.
Yeah. Are Chekhov and Sulu both cadets?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's like a cadet run ship all of a sudden because they don't have enough manpower to do everything.
Yeah, because they got called up for Nero.
Right.
So I don't know. It's very, very convenient. They're not supposed to be all the same age.
Yeah, and that's not something Nero going back in time could change.
No, I don't see how he would. But. And I don't know, a ship run by cadets it reminds me too much of
Valiant. Yeah, fair enough.
And that episode was horrible, and so it's hard not to correlate.
Now, I am going to say that having Nero go back in time and mess stuff up could change things that you couldn't foresee. There would be some things that you... So, for instance, I don't have a problem with the fact that Pike didn't wind up on Talos, for instance.
Sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't know what exactly Nero going back in time changed to get Pike to where he didn't go on a Talos, but you blow up one ship that was kind of important, that wasn't supposed to blow up, and the chain of events could be irrevocably altered.
Yes.
But it wouldn't change the ages of people. And,
No.
and things like that. And it wouldn't change what races were in Starfleet.
Yeah.
For instance.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to explain, especially to people that aren't big Star Trek fans that are wondering why we're up in arms about certain things with this movie, is just that I think that some of it's lazy.
Yes.
And it
doesn't have to be.
What I'm saying is that it's a great idea to actually reboot out of original continuity. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to say. But it doesn't entirely work. In fact, it doesn't work at all in places. And it's just lazy. And what it comes off as a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
And again, I understand why other people don't have a problem with it, because they wouldn't know. And they're not invested in it like we are.
Yeah. And scenes like we were just seeing on screen are very pretty.
Yeah, and it's really pretty. It's fun to watch. Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying this. It's a lot of fun to watch. And I will say that I think Abrams has a really good handle on how to do action with these ships.
Yes.
Maybe he throws out a few too many photon torpedoes at one time. I don't know how big those torpedo tubes are, but you can shoot like 55 torpedoes in this. You didn't used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is the way it comes off is with regards to trying to make it makes it sound like Abrams just wanted to try to make Star Trek fans happy.
Yeah.
And as long as he kind of had a clever reason to start things over and go back to these characters, but wasn't doing a straight-on, full-on reboot, and made it to where in his continuity, our continuity still happened.
He thought that would make us
that would appease us.
Yeah.
I am less appeased than I would have been if he just started over.
Yeah. Well, because what happens then is you still consider this to be your continuity.
It is.
It's supposed to be, and so they're messing with...
And yet he doesn't care about my continuity, so why not just do your own?
Yes.
And I have the same problem with this that I do with the DC New 52.
Yeah, yes.
You know, it's like don't try to keep certain things and not keep other certain things. If you don't want to do it anymore, start over.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll like it.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll like it.
If
I don't, I have all the other stuff I used to have, and I still do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying he ruined Star Trek or anything like that.
No.
I don't think you can ruin Star Trek. No. I have a lot of great Star Trek I love. You can't ruin it.
It's
still there.
It still exists. We can still watch it as much as we want.
But I guess my point is, I wanted to like this more than I would have liked a reboot, because he was cool enough to make it part of my continuity.
And he did a lot of clever things
and he
with
did
it.
do a lot of clever things. Yeah, so it's frustrating because so much of it works. It's like Smallville. So much of it works, but, well,
no,
actually,
it's way
better than Smallville.
Smallville.
No, it is. Let me throw that. It is way better than Smallville. But these characters do sometimes feel like actual people.
Yeah, imagine that.
But I'm just saying that, like, people have asked me before who don't really know Star Trek, do I start with Star Trek or do I start with motion picture? This is still Star Trek 11.
Yeah.
It is Star Trek 11.
Yeah.
It happens after all the rest of the continuity because, once again, 100,000 times I've said this, it is a sequel that takes place in the past.
Yeah.
You have 700 episodes, 10 films, and then Romulus explodes, and you start back in the 23rd century.
In a way, to figure out what in the world is even happening here, you need to know at least the next generation, at least maybe even Nemesis, you know?
That shot right there, we haven't been talking much about what's actually on screen. That shot there of the bridge going out from the ship looks great, and is potentially even in homage to the Cage, although that might be going too far.
And backwards, right?
Yeah, but it's neat that it's backwards.
Yeah.
What do you think about the tattoo faces? Is that just there for no good reason?
Well, according to this movie, it's there for no good reason. I never liked it. They don't look like Romulans. They don't act like Romulans. They don't dress like Romulans. They're not Romulans, except that the movie tells us they're Romulans, unless you read the comic book, which I didn't read.
Well, the fact that they dress differently and everything is okay because they're minors.
Yeah, but
they have a job that would make them dress differently than regular Romulans.
If I had something to latch onto that told me, yes, these are Romulans, okay, I could buy it. Yeah, because not all Romulans dress alike, sure.
What I don't entirely understand is why they have the most powerful ship in the universe.
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be a mining ship?
It's supposed to be a mining ship, and it seems like it's... I get the idea. I think part of the idea is supposed to be it's so futuristic that it can beat anything in the past.
But
it's huge!
It's huge, and I don't buy that a mining ship could destroy a planet.
Well, it destroys the planet because of red matter.
But,
yeah.
So did they add weapons and to fight off the ships?
Yeah, it looks scarier than the scimitar to me.
Yeah.
From Nemesis.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know what it is with our villains in Romulan movies having to have gianter ships.
Yeah.
Is it weird, by the way, where this movie seems to be taking ideas from Nemesis and making
which is
them
a
bigger?
bad idea.
Which is a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the whole revenge thing a little bit later when we get to old Spock, I think.
Yeah.
But,
and we'll talk way more about revenge when we finally do Nemesis.
oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. So what do you think of the guy who plays Pike?
I like him. I'd say he does a really good job. Just what I would expect for if Pike had, lived a normal life and gotten to be that age. I think it makes sense.
I love the idea of using Pike as the consummate starship captain.
Yeah. Because he kind of
was.
was in the cage.
He's really no nonsense.
Uh-huh.
I like the idea of him being Kirk's mentor in an alternate continuity.
Mm-hmm.
All that really works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're about to do a scene that... Is this the one where they land on the drill yet?
Yes, we're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, that scene just never worked for me, and I'm not sure why. It's just...
Okay. Just as an action scene?
Just as an action scene. They're fighting around this tiny little drill, and... Like, Sulu even has swords?
Yeah, they give him a sword. He mentions this right here. Do you have any combat training? Fencing. And so then he has a sword. And again, they're trying to use stuff that people know about TOS. So they go, well, what do people know about Sulu? Well, not much.
He ran around the ship with a sword once.
He ran around the ship with a sword once, and later on he's a captain. Well, we can't use that.
He likes tea. We can't use that.
I do think that that's a really funny line. I think that's a really funny exchange when he says, what kind of combat training do you have? And he says fencing. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's a little hokey for him to have a sword? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But, are we gonna... Like what exactly are we gonna complain about here? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's having too much fun. You know what I'm saying? I'm okay with some silly things like that. I mean, at least Sulu having a sword doesn't just scientifically make no sense.
Yeah,
as opposed to other things.
Yeah, definitely. Was there? Speaking of scientifically making no sense, was there a reason that they couldn't beam onto it? Why do they have to base jump onto it?
Yeah, they mention it, and you'll see here in a few minutes that when they they have a really hard time beaming them out. There's interference. I don't know of what kind. I forget, but yeah,
it's neuroference.
I will apologize. I've not seen this movie a ton of times. I've watched this maybe 4 or 5 times, and Sarah's only seen it a couple times.
Or maybe once.
No, I took you. We went back. You saw it in the theater twice.
That's right. We did.
No, you went back. Yeah.
Twice. Yep.
No, I don't think you would be able to talk nearly as coherently as you are about this if you'd only seen it the one time.
Yes, my memory is just awesome.
One of the problems I have about this is that Chekhov is a genius.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's a genius in that, why he can do anything. I don't know why he's better at beaming people than anyone else on the ship when he's a cadet.
Yeah. And
don't they have people who that's their only job? And he's like...
He's not a transporter chief in the show.
No, at no point do I remember Chekhov, and if anybody knows a place I'm not thinking of, tell me, but I don't remember any point where Chekhov's like, I'm great with a transporter.
Ouch.
And here comes our first big red shirt death. I do love this.
Uh-huh.
That's fun. No, I do. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
I like that. And in the theater, it was the whole... we saw this, we saw the sneak preview of this, and like the Thursday showing, and the whole audience, and it was a packed house, and the whole audience just cracked up when Chekhov said, "He's just gone, sir." That's pretty funny. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like about that
Kirk
is
has landed.
it's like these characters, this is their first mission, and they're learning how the rules of TOS work.
Yeah.
And they're in a universe where, because the writing, the fictional writing always works out this way, the guy that you've never heard of is going to die. And they're the characters in the film are discovering this.
Yes.
I love that. That's
They better
very
make
funny.
sure the audience knows who they are. So why are there people on the drill now?
Because the Romulans were told by Nero to come out and stop them. I'm pretty sure.
You'd hope so.
So that's why they're out there. No, they're not just hanging out, you know.
Yeah, they're like the people at the top of the roof. And
Again, this is one of those things that's just kind of an excuse for a big action scene, and at least... and at least something huge is at stake. It's not just a big action scene. We're trying to stop Vulcan from exploding.
Yeah.
One thing I do have to say about the whole cadets running a ship thing is that at least they don't succeed at everything. It sucks that Vulcan has to blow up because of that.
Yeah.
But I like that they're not entirely competent.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So it does make a lot of sense that they come down here, they give their most valiant effort, but ultimately it's not going to be enough.
Yeah. Although that's why you should make a movie about cadets running a ship, really.
Well, I mean, I guess they stop Earth from blowing up.
Yeah,
but,
good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that's going to have to happen.
Although it'd be interesting to see a sequel where there's no Earth.
Oh, you mean like if that's what they blow it up here?
If that's what they blow it up
Vulcan?
first. And then Federation headquarters moves to Vulcan.
I think that Zachary Quinto would have had a lot harder of a time selling the notion that this was an extremely optimistic film.
Yes.
Although, I want to talk about that because I think that's tough anyway.
Yeah.
There were all these interviews where Zachary Quinto was saying, I love being in this movie because in this day and age of so many really brooding kind of films, we're doing this really optimistic stuff. And I feel like you're talking about Star Trek, but I don't know if you're talking about this.
Yeah.
How
Star
optimistic is this, really?
Well, they save Earth, but don't the good guys normally win even in brooding films?
Exactly.
So, what makes this different?
I mean, you have little token things where, okay, they're working for the Federation, which is a peacekeeping organization, not just a military that makes a lot of war on people. And at the end, you have the whole bit where Kirk offers to help Nero instead of just blow him out of the sky. Yeah. They have little bits where the characters are doing things that I think that the characters in Star Trek would do.
Right.
But overall, I don't know if the universe is an optimistic
I'm
one.
not saying that any of the characters in this, except maybe Nero, are brooding, but it's not necessarily...
I think Kirk is at the beginning, but I think it makes sense that he is.
Yeah, because he had a less than perfect life growing up to differentiate between the way he was initially.
I like rough around the edges Kirk.
Sure, and that's fine. But you're right, the universe just isn't very optimistic. Especially when the first time out in this movie, you blow up Vulcan. Mm-hmm. I mean, how optimistic is that? That's a whole planet. That's how many billion people.
Plus, Vulcan is one of the major things in Star Trek that helps make the future of Star Trek seem more optimistic because their philosophy has a lot to do with the Star Trek
logic
philosophy.
Is winning out, or logic wins out over things.
And they're pacifists. They don't make war on people.
Right.
And the Roddenberry's idea was always in the future. His hope was we could get to a point where we could. Where it would be possible to just be pacifistic and never make war on anyone. Yeah. And the Vulcans managed it.
And we're seeing here that because the Vulcans were pacifists, their planet blows up.
They don't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, Vulcan has
They don't
ships.
seem to have any weapons on the planet at all. Yeah. That's crazy. And that's one of the things that I cannot get my mind around.
Yeah.
That they're such pacifists, they don't even do anything to stop their planet from being destroyed.
Yeah, and that doesn't really jive with what we know about Vulcans.
Not even kind of. Especially Enterprise Vulcans.
Yeah. There's a problem with
who seem to want to make war on people. But I just mean even but especially like TOS and TNG Vulcans.
Yeah, because the problem with being ultimate pacifists where you won't lift a gun or a weapon of any kind no matter what happens is that then you get taken over all the time. And so I would assume that Vulcan has learned that the best way to prevent that from happening is to have a good defensive system in place.
This is another bit I really like. Kirk jumps off the drill to save a guy.
Yeah.
And his hope is somebody's going to beam him up.
Yeah.
But whether or not that's going to happen, by God, he's not going to let that guy die alone.
Yeah.
That is so Kirk.
Yeah.
And do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. And so I'm saying that thematically there are a lot of things working about this movie, and the characters, for the most part, except for Nero, feel pretty real to me. Kirk jumps off the drill, or the scary grill that's going to destroy Vulcan.
Yes.
And he says, and by the way, the beaming and going so fast that you break part of the transporter pad is just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Although I would wonder if beaming actually stops momentum.
That's one of those science things that I almost don't care about. It looks so cool.
Yeah.
But I agree with
but,
you. It
you know,
maybe
physics.
is a problem. Yeah, I'm with you. But, I like that Spock has to, bend down because he knows he's going to be in a small place.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I was going to say is, so Kirk is going to save this guy, or hope that he can.
But he's not.
And he says, what's that?
But he's not in a small place.
Oh, he's not even in a small place? Why is he bent down then?
I don't know.
Just because he's not sure
in case
where
Rebel
he's going
falls on his head.
Wow, now I'm bugged by that. Okay, anyway, but let me finish this point because we're so past it now. Sure. Where he's falling down and he's trying to save that guy. And earlier he said, "I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
Yeah.
Either I'm going to get out of this or I'm going to die.
He just
but
goes
I'm in
all
a
the way no
place
matter what.
where I know it's possible.
Yeah.
And because I didn't stop to think maybe I won't win, I win."
Right.
That is James T. Kirk.
It is, and it always works for him, no matter what show you're talking about, what movie.
That's the archetype.
Yeah.
That's what makes that archetype endearing. That's the consummate action hero.
Yeah.
I win because I made the choice.
Yeah. And
because I made the right choice.
And I think that's why Kirk is so lovable and so well loved by people. And I know that's why I really enjoy watching Kirk, is because he'll do anything. He's crazy, but he'll always do the right thing, regardless of the consequences to him and his ship. As long as he does the right thing.
There's a part of me, and I know this is going to sound really funny. Oh, we should probably talk about the whole Spock's mother dying thing. But there's a part of me that kind of wishes that Spock was the one who beamed Kirk up when he was falling.
Uh-huh.
Just because we get a similar situation, well, not really similar, but in Star Trek V, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
But Kirk is dropping from that mountain.
Yeah.
And Spock rescues him.
With
and
the
Kirk
rocket
says,
boots.
and Kirk says, the reason I knew I wouldn't die was because you two were here, and I knew you would be here to rescue me.
Uh-huh.
And it might have been cool if Spock here had been the one who'd beamed him.
Yeah, maybe so.
Just as a parallel to that, but maybe that's a stupid thing to want to parallel. So Spock's mother dies,
Uh-huh.
and I think the idea here is that Kirk lost his father,
Uh-huh.
so Spock has to lose his mother, and that's what makes them the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't be Sarek because he's Sarek.
Yeah, Sarek.
Plus,
Sarek can never die.
Well, and if you're going to destroy Vulcan, I don't know where the remaining Vulcans would be without Sarek. You know.
Well, here's a question.
Yeah.
If they drop a black hole in the middle of the planet, or red matter creates the black hole,
wouldn't it expand?
Or no. Well, wouldn't it just pull in the ship too? Like anything within? Wouldn't it stay there? It looked like there was just once the planet was gone, there was no more.
Everything
black hole.
just disappears.
The
black hole sucks itself in.
Yeah.
And disappears. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know exactly how black holes work, but
I don't know exactly how anything works in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the red matter thing is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a giant plot device to make things happen.
Yeah. Well, I want to be able to take an eyedropper and create little black holes in the air. Can I have one for Christmas?
Yeah, sure. I'll work on that. So, Spock and Uhura, go.
Ugh. Is that all I can say about that?
No, we need to talk about it.
Okay. It's weird to me. On a couple levels. One, okay. If he's teaching at Starfleet Academy and she's a student, that's just weird anyway. I don't think Spock would do that even just logically.
And I don't think anybody would allow it.
I don't think it would be allowed.
And he's so by the book. He makes a huge deal out of being so by the book.
Uhura is such a good student. I think she'd have a crush, but I don't think she'd cross that line. I really don't.
Thank you. I never thought of that. That's great.
And then okay, and then he's a Vulcan, and it's just I don't know. It's just he seems so emotional with her.
Yeah, I mean they play up the half-human thing really, really hard in this, of course.
Yeah.
And once again, my assumption has gotta be if we're gonna take this contrivance to its furthest course, that something about the past changed one of them, and it was probably Uhura.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly.
But there was never any indication in any of the TV show or the movies that Uhura and Spock would ever have a thing going on. Ever. If anybody, it was Uhura and Scotty.
Yeah. Which, once again, Star Trek V.
Okay, I'm okay with having some sort of a love interest in here if you have to have one, which I don't like having among people in the bridge crew. personally. But if you're going to have one that makes sense.
What I would have done with this movie is I would have added another female character.
Yeah.
And I probably would have made it Chapel. Mm-hmm. Either Chapel or Rand.
Yeah.
Maybe Rand.
Yeah.
And made Rand a bigger character. Mm-hmm. Maybe in this continuity you can change stuff around, guys, because you changed the past. So maybe instead of Rand being a yeoman, she's a lieutenant in this, or she's even one of the cadets, and you make her one of the bridge crew. Why the heck not?
Yeah.
Well, maybe because they're trying to play on what everybody knows, and these are the characters they know. But here's the thing. Uhura is the only major female character you have. That makes it a very masculine kind of movie, and that makes it really glaring when you're one female character. I don't even mean one main female character. She's the only female character in this besides Spock's mother. She's the only one, and it. I need to talk about that line that Nero just gave, but they have. I have more to say about this than I thought I would. They make it really come off like the stereotypical female has to be a love interest thing.
Yeah.
She's there just to be a love interest.
Personally, I hate that in a movie.
Yeah, me too.
I can't stand to watch movies that have a forced love interest. I do enjoy movies that have a love interest in them, and I do enjoy some movies where that is the plot, but I like them to be smart.
It's insulting when that's all the woman is there for.
And there's no chemistry.
I don't think so either, and this movie tries to make excuses about it. It says, well, Uhura, and I said earlier, I think the characters are real. I don't think she's very real. She's the one that I don't really buy, and I think that it's making excuses. It's like, well, she's super, super smart, she's proactive, she makes big decisions, and in some places, the men are made to seem dumber because she's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's all excuses so that we won't notice that she's just there to be the love interest for Spock. But it's even worse than that, because it's kind of like, well, she's only just a love interest because she's the only female character that was in TOS, and we gotta have that because it's a mainstream movie and we're trying to bring in people that aren't Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
Nero says, I'm now moving on to a new topic.
Yes.
Nero has, despite the fact that I don't love him as a villain in this because he's not established well enough.
Yeah.
He has one of my favorite lines in the movie, which is, "It happened, don't tell me it didn't happen," when he's talking to Pike about the destruction of Romulus.
Yeah.
Because that is the best thing for us Star Trek fans to get to. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was there for us, and I love that. Where this movie is a sequel, guys. It's not a prequel.
Right.
It happened, and what I love about it is I can sympathize with that. When you have new fans who love this movie and don't like, and by the way, I haven't met very many of them. Yeah. Most of the people that I've found that love this movie are going back to TOS and enjoying TOS, which is wonderful, and I got to give this movie props for that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, if we ever had the person who was like, well, you had your time in the sun, you had your continuity, but now we have ours and yours doesn't count. Uh-huh. And I can sympathize with Nero, and I can say, it happened, don't tell me it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yep.
Wonderful. Anyway, sorry. I was on my soapbox, but I love that.
Yep. Although, you were reminding me with the whole, don't tell me that didn't happen, with it just reminded me of John Locke's line in Lost. Don't tell me what I can't do.
That's great.
I don't know why that paralleled for me. But
maybe there's a little bit of that in there. That's fair.
Yep.
So right here we get the crew of the Enterprise realizing what exactly is going on, and I like that they all say, "Oh crap, we're in a different continuity."
Yeah. So do we have to go back and fix the timeline, or do we keep our own?
They don't even talk about maybe going back.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it's the only time in Star Trek this ever happens, right?
Well, at this point, they don't believe in time travel, do they? I mean, not that they don't believe in time travel, but they can't just do the slingshot effect.
They wouldn't know how to do it.
Because they don't know how to do it.
Well, we haven't had that episode yet.
Right.
That's right. But I really like that they just come out and start talking about it, and they debate about whether or not they can predict the future.
Yeah.
And Kirk says, "Well, it's a new chain of events. We can't know."
Yeah. Yep.
I think that Spock and Kirk screaming at each other actually works in this movie, in this context. I think it's working okay.
I think that's one thing where they built the characters up well enough that we buy that exchange.
This was part of this was a scene. They showed us part of this before the movie came out. That was one of the early scenes that they put up on the internet, and I think it was an awful thing to show us before the movie came out.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you and I both looked at it and went, "Oh God, what are we getting ourselves into?" Yeah. Kirk and Spock like punching each other out on the bridge. What?
Yeah.
And again, you need the context of it.
Yeah.
And I was giving it the benefit of the doubt. I was going, I hope just with the context that it'll work.
And here. So apparently they don't have Briggs on board?
Yeah, they have to
so
just
the first option is just, you're just stranded. I don't care what planet you end up on. You're just gone. Get him off the ship? What?
I've never seen that happen in Star Trek.
Ever.
So he
no
gets
one gets
stranded,
marooned except Khan.
He gets marooned on something called Delta Vega. Now let me ask you this question.
Yes.
We're going to use very few alien species that anybody's familiar with in this movie with Star Trek. And yes, I'm getting Star Trek nitpicky, but I'm going to do it anyway. We get very little aliens that we've ever heard of. One of the ones with the Orions that we do use, we can't even be entirely sure if it is an Orion.
Yeah.
But we pull the name of a planet out of nowhere,
out of the Star Trek encyclopedia,
and not actually look into what it actually is, and we just call some random planet that's right next to Vulcan Delta Vega. Yeah. Add the insult to injury, this is the very last name of a planet you'd want to pull out of a hat and call some random planet next to Vulcan. And let me reiterate that this cannot possibly be the actual Delta Vega that we had in TOS, because it was, ladies and gentlemen, in the center of the galaxy. That was where No Man Has Gone Before. That was with what's his name?
Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell, thank you. And that was again nowhere near here. In fact, as far away from here as you can get without going to one of the other quadrants.
Yeah.
And we call this Delta Vega.
Yeah.
In the current comic book series that's going on by IDW based on this continuity, they've said that there are 2 Delta Vegas.
Yeah.
There would have to be.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. I guess it's not the biggest problem ever, but why?
Yeah.
But why? Why don't you just call it some other planet? Why don't you look at star charts that were actually made, while the series was going on, and pick a planet close to Vulcan and call it that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're going to claim you're doing your homework at all, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that once again. I feel like I have to reiterate this again. I'm sorry, but because people are arguing with me about this all the time. Why does it matter? Well, Abrams seems to think that we're going to care whether or not it's even connected to our continuity.
Yeah.
You either do that all the way or start over.
Yeah.
If he wants to start over and call this Delta Vega, fine.
Yeah.
I couldn't argue with it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, definitely.
I'll stop saying. I'll stop talking about that.
I'm sorry. I was just watching the giant monster fight. Yeah, Kirk's
the giant frozen crab thing.
Yeah, where Kirk's running away from the green screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
You think it looks bad?
I think not only does it look bad, but it's Star Wars. It's like when they were going down to see the Gungans for the first time, and you had this big fish that was going to eat their little pod ship.
It's not even good Star Wars.
And then you have the giant fish that comes and eats the bigger fish.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
they do that whole thing.
This whole thing. I mean, why is there even life on this planet? I mean, most Star Trek planets don't have life, if you think about it.
Well, that's true. Especially when they're frozen wastelands.
Yeah. It's just there for an action sequence, and so that we don't say, oh, Kirk landed right next to old Spock. No, he just happened to be, randomly chased by monsters to run into the cave where old Spock happened to be staying, which is just as contrived.
Yeah, is that monster the only one around here? Are there thousands of them? There's no way to make that less than contained. And once again, it's just Abrams took the opportunity to do something he wanted to do on screen in some movie.
Yeah.
It's too embellished. It interrupts the narrative for no good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there'd be a problem with completely cutting that out. We'd have the same movie.
No, and they cut out scenes that they needed in the movie to make it make more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is really good to see this Spock on screen.
Oh, yeah.
Nimoy's always great.
Yeah. There are lines they give him that I think are dopey.
Yeah.
You know, when he talks about the past, when they do the mind meld, it's all way too oversimplified.
Yeah.
And when we get there, I'm gonna stop and listen to it for a second because I don't remember exactly what the line is, but there's one thing that he says that I'm just like, what does that even mean? It sounds like a video game plot.
Yeah.
I think we're about to get there. But yes, Nimoy is wonderful in this, of course.
Yeah.
So a star will explode.
Yes.
Listen to this, and threaten to destroy the galaxy.
That's a big star.
What does that even mean? How would that happen?
Yeah. Stars going supernova would not destroy.
And even if it would, it didn't.
Yeah.
So Spock did not manage to stop the destruction of this star, and it didn't destroy the whole galaxy. So why did it threaten to destroy the galaxy? Or did he... Maybe I'm forgetting how exactly this worked. So the supernova happens, destroys Romulus. Did he contain it after that, or do we even know? Maybe that's what happened. Yeah, maybe he contains it after. So he shoots. Okay, so he stopped the supernova before it destroyed the galaxy. But why would it destroy the galaxy?
Why would a supernova destroy the galaxy?
What kind of supernova? What kind of supernova is this?
Well, it's
is it some kind of like man-made supernova that was made to destroy the galaxy? Like
it's a tricoplot supernova.
It's a tricoplot device.
Yes.
Okay, so can I take this opportunity, Sarah, to put out my analogy for why Nero makes no sense?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. First of all, let me start with in that comic book thing that's not canon, of course. Nero and Spock have a background where they're friends for a while, and they're working together to try to stop this. And I don't remember exactly how it works out, but the reason Nero is angry with them makes a lot more sense than the very little bit that we get here. He thinks that Spock was too lazy about it and didn't do everything he could do, and he promised him something that he did. Basically, it was all political in the comic. It was completely political. It was you trusted the Federation to stop this, and they didn't stop it, so it's your fault. He gets angry with Spock because Spock trusted people Nero thinks he shouldn't trust. That makes sense, or at least has the potential to make sense.
Yeah.
In this, he gets angry with Spock because Spock promises that he'll stop it with his red matter, or at least that's what we get here. That's what we're told.
Yeah.
And Spock fails, so he wants revenge.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just want to kill Spock when he finds Spock in the past, because they show up at different points, which is also a little contrived, where exactly they show up in the past. But he wants to destroy every Federation planet.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be like this. That would be like, let's say Vince is hanging off a cliff, and I am holding on to Vince's hand and trying to pull him up so that he doesn't die. And I've got my foot straddled on like a twig that's stuck to some behind me, trying to pull us both up, trying to steady myself, right? And I'm doing everything I can do to pull him up. And I just can't do it because I'm too tiny, and I'm not heavy, and I'm not big enough to pull Vince all the way up.
Yes.
And I let go, and he falls, and I think he's fallen to his death.
To his doom.
To his doom. But Vince has not actually fallen to his doom. I find out later that he actually survived the fall, but he lost his legs. He's in a wheelchair now. And because he lost his legs, and those were the most important thing to him, like Nero's family and his planet are to Nero, Vince likes to work out, and he can't work out because he doesn't have legs anymore, or because his legs don't work.
Right.
Vince is in a wheelchair, and I tried to help him, but because I failed, Vince blames me as if I dropped him on purpose. So for incompetence, for the failure of trying to save his life and not managing it, he comes after me and wants to not only kill me, but my entire family.
well, that's fair.
It would be like that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and that's really the plot you get for Nero in this movie, and why he really doesn't make sense as a villain. He doesn't have the motive that you'd want for a supervillain.
He doesn't have a motive that makes any sense.
Yeah.
His motive is akin to, I'm gonna kill my green-blooded hobgoblin. I do like that. That's very TOS McCoy. No, he doesn't have a motive right anywhere beyond my henchman screwed up and I'm going to shoot him in the face.
Yeah,
it's like that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it could have been fleshed out.
Yeah, but I mean, in this, Nero should be in Arkham Asylum. I mean, he's just that messed up.
Yeah, he's too psychotic for me to sympathize, and I feel like the movie is asking me to sympathize.
Yeah,
sympathize.
Well,
Excuse me.
You have to sympathize with a man who's lost his whole family and his whole planet, right?
No, you don't, because it's fiction.
Yeah,
and they're not real. So you have to do something to make me care.
Yeah. Well, and
you have to make me believe it.
The problem is that
and I don't.
The actions that he takes because of it, as a result, negate any sympathy you'd have for him.
Exactly.
Because he's just not making sense.
Some people have said, well, he's just psychotic, and psychotic people can do anything you want. The director wants them to, and that's too easy. Again, I'm asked to sympathize with him.
Yeah.
And I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so
look,
you hate this little alien.
It's an Ewok.
So there's a little alien that works with Scotty.
And doesn't talk, really. He just is short and cute, because his eyes do that flickery thing. And
we're supposed to like him.
We're supposed to like him because basically he's supposed to be cute.
And he's played by Deep Roy, and everybody's supposed to like anybody who's played by Deep Roy.
Yeah. But he's not a Star Trek alien.
No, he's very much a Star Wars alien. This guy is played, by the way, if I remember correctly, by, I think his name is Deep Roy, the same guy who played the Oompa Loompas in the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I was supposed to like them, too.
So, Scotty has a tribble.
Yeah, only one?
Well, he must understand how tribbles work.
He starves his tribble.
Yeah, anyway you slice it, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. They're born pregnant, so... And I think they have little tribbles every couple hours or so. I mean, it doesn't take very long.
This whole scene here seems to be here just to make some fun Trek references for those of us that know anything about Star Trek.
But the problem is that for those of us who know anything about Star Trek, it doesn't work.
Well, and both of them are kind of weird. One of them is the tribble thing, and the other one is he messed up in a beaming experiment trying to do long range beaming. He just said it. He killed Archer's prize beagle.
Uh-huh.
Admiral Archer's prize beagle. Now, us Enterprise fans have a chuckle at that. Well, Enterprise fans. Okay, those of us that have watched Enterprise.
Yes.
Sorry, boy, I almost got in trouble.
Yes.
Those of us who have seen Enterprise, chuckle at that for a second.
Yeah.
The problem is.
Can you do some math?
The problem is, is it Jonathan Archer? Now it could be. It could be 100-something-year-old Admiral Jonathan Archer.
Well, this would be what, 2260 something, 2250 something.
He'd be in his 130s, 120s, 130s, wouldn't he?
Yeah, that's still pretty old.
That's pretty friggin' old for a human.
Yeah.
So
and dogs especially don't live that long, so it's certainly not Porthos.
So it can't be Porthos. we have to assume that Archer just keeps having different beagles.
Yeah.
But I would assume that they want us to think that that's Jonathan Archer.
Yeah.
I guess it could be. I guess it could be a son or something. It could be anything.
They put Archer in cryostasis for about 50 years, and then thawed him and made him an admiral.
Yeah. What happened was he went out and hung out with Zephram Cochrane for a while.
With the companion.
With the companion.
Yes.
And then came back.
Yes.
And now he's an admiral.
Yeah. No, and then he went and lived on the Insurrection planet.
Oh.
So now he's actually 300 years old, but he looks like he's 35.
I really thought we could get through this movie without an Insurrection reference, but I guess not.
I had to do it.
So Spock here tells Kirk that it would be a really bad idea for young Spock to know about old Spock because it might do something terrible to the timeline and could destroy everything or whatever. Of course, the timeline is already irreparably damaged. I can't say that word today.
Yeah, yeah, you've got me saying.
Yeah, we're all anyway. It's really messed up.
Yes.
And
irrevocably.
Thank you.
Yes.
You talk this long and you and you have a difficult time making your words work. But anyway, the timeline is already totally messed up.
Yes.
So we find out later at the end of this that was just a bogus thing that he said, so that Kirk would be forced to make friends with Spock.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you? Is a little too touchy-feely?
A little too touchy-feely, and I understand that by this point Spock is able to lie a little bit, or at least stretch the truth.
Oh, absolutely he is.
But I don't know. It's just weird.
It's not terrible, but
I'm not sure there's I don't know that there's enough of a point to it, because he doesn't tell him what's really going on so that he and young Spock will become friends, because he's worried they won't do that anyway?
Yeah, well, he doesn't want to go tell young Spock what to do with himself.
Uh-huh.
He wants Kirk to have to do it, because he knows at this point that Kirk and Spock are kind of enemies.
Yeah.
And he's very surprised by that. He's like, well, there's a friendship, and it will define you, and that's important. And
yeah.
I don't see how. And I like that, because it's like we had all these adventures, and I know that our friendship is what saved us a million times. So I know you're going to need to have that.
Yeah.
And so he could just. Kirk asked him to just go talk to Spock. Well, he could just go talk to young Spock and tell him what's going on. But if he does that, he feels like it's going to jeopardize the possibility of Kirk and Spock becoming what they're supposed to become. Now,
yeah.
The reason I bring this up is that I want to know why old Spock is so concerned about that, and why he's not trying to, I don't know, go back in time and fix things?
Yeah, because he knows how to slingshot around the sun.
He made it work in the 80s with, like, a fork, some twine, and a watch crystal, okay? I'm kidding, but Spock is the MacGyver of the Star Trek universe, right? Yeah. And in far less crippling situations than this, he has decided, he and other Star Trek characters have decided that the timeline has been too affected to not go back and fix things.
Yeah.
So why is he not thinking about trying to actually go back and fix stuff? If nothing else, I mean, Vulcan exploded, okay?
Yeah.
Something way bigger and catastrophic has happened due to this time travel than anything we've ever seen, except for, say, First Contact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the whole Federation gets assimilated.
Yeah.
Or presumably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if Picard thinks, hey, we probably should go back in time because everything got assimilated, wouldn't you figure Spock would say, hey, let's go fix that?
Yeah.
Now, the question is, how would you fix it? You'd probably go back to the point of the Kelvin, right?
You'd probably have to, but then
because you couldn't go to the future because the future's been changed already.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go back to where you started from. You'd have to go back to where Nero came to the 23rd century.
Yeah, try to distract him long enough to get him back into that vortex he came out of.
Or just use some red matter and suck him in.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're okay with killing him.
Yeah.
If you're not using ethics. And
but he's not supposed to be in the timeline anyway, right there.
No, exactly.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
For all intents and purposes, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean, it'd be a hard one to fix, but they've always fixed it before.
They've always fixed it, but I'm just saying, it doesn't feel... Abrams needed to make it impossible.
Yeah.
And he didn't make it impossible.
Well, and the problem is that it's not that he didn't make it impossible, it's that it never even really came up.
No, exactly. They didn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Old Spock's just like, well, this is the timeline now.
Yeah.
Never, ever have they ever done that.
Yeah.
In Star Trek. So... once again, the contrivance to make this work is making it not work.
Yeah.
That's a problem. What cracks me up even more is that he has a ship specifically designed for time travel.
Yeah.
Or is it? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I don't remember if that...
No, he just got sucked into a rift, kind of,
yeah.
didn't he? Okay, so we've got Zachary Quinto choking someone.
Yeah, although Kirk provokes him in this, and it's actually reminiscent of the time that one episode.
The Side of Paradise.
Yes. Although the difference, of course, is that Spock isn't on spores here.
No, but
he just lost his planet. You know, which, fair enough.
Here's the thing. I'm not complaining that Spock chokes Kirk on the bridge in this situation.
Yeah.
What I think is funny is the angle they shot it from.
Uh-huh.
Because it looks just like Sylar from Heroes. I just think it's really funny. Because like...
Spock is wondering what kind of brains Kirk has.
Well, what... he's going to put his finger up and be like, eh. What it makes me wonder... What it made me wonder at the theater was... Did they cast Zachary Quinto just because Sylar chokes people? Like,
that would be funny. Those would be funny auditions.
I'm mostly joking. I think it's a great scene.
Yeah,
I do think it's a great scene. But I was distracted because of the Sylar thing.
Yeah,
and you can tell Spock is embarrassed by this.
Oh yeah,
he's like, I cannot believe I did that.
He looks up and the first person he sees is Sarek.
Yes, and that's wonderful. And so, well, Sarek's the one who says stop.
Yeah,
Sarek says Spock. Well, he doesn't say stop, but he just says Spock. And it's clear to Spock, you can tell, that Kirk did that on purpose.
Yeah.
That he was trying to get him dropped from his command.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scotty's kind of just comic relief in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a little disappointing. But...
I wouldn't have expected like a character arc for him or anything.
No, but at least he wasn't a cadet. Although,
I know.
We're complaining about everybody else being a cadet at the same time, but
you're right. Well, that's why I said I didn't think everybody was.
Yeah.
But Scotty comes on later. I like that. I mean, he's a miracle worker. It's hard. It's hard to imagine that he would know what he was doing as well as he does if he was just a. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto is just eating this role up.
Yeah.
I think he's fantastic. Some people have complained that they don't think that he really feels like Spock. I think he's great.
Well, and I think the problem is that there's just no way to replace Leonard Nimoy.
No.
There's nobody who's like
nobody
him.
Exists that feels like Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, so you have to change him up a little bit. Zachary Quinto gets as close as you can, capturing the essence of it without being Leonard Nimoy. I mean, who else are you gonna get? He has to be a slightly different character because there just is nobody.
And then Chris Pine just nails Kirk.
Yeah.
Completely nails it. For every problem I have with the script writing in this movie, I have some praise to give the production.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and for every scene that's seems irrelevant, you have a scene like this, scenes between Spock and his father, or really just any of the Vulcan scenes that are just solid and so good. Mm-hmm. And you're so glad that they were in there.
Yeah, because otherwise you wouldn't have had anything to grasp onto, really.
Yeah.
One of the things that is weird, that is always weird when you have something as huge as the destruction of a whole planet, or the death of a character in the first or second act that you really cared about. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about X3.
I was thinking that.
When you have something like that, and then you very soon after do a big joke scene, it just doesn't work. I think it was already too soon. Well, and I don't think the scene works anyway.
Yeah.
But with Scotty getting beamed into the tube, and then the tube thing, a lot of people said that's too Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I 100% agree with that.
I totally agree. And that was what, the engine room?
That was the engine room.
When did the engine room ever look like that?
Well, there's talk about that. The Abrams and the other producers say that the reason they did that was because, again, they wanted it to look familiar to people. Now, I don't know what engine rooms on like sailing ships, and not sailing ships, but like big cruise ships or military ships or whatever, or like really look like. Uh-huh. So that wasn't recognizable to me. Yeah. But they were like, well, we were trying to make it look more like naval. Yeah, and so we made it like a big boiling room or something.
Yeah, but
I don't get it.
What do those parts even do
for the
ship?
Yeah, what's the hydraulics
people
for?
Know what engineering is. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. That'd be more recognizable to people than just a random room with bunches of McDonald's Playland tubes.
I agree with
water
you.
In them.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like...
And a giant whirling thing that Scotty's going to get sucked into and chopped to bits. I mean... it's so generic.
I doubt there is anybody who saw that and thought, oh, now that looks more realistic than what they did in Star Trek.
Yeah, and for the bridge being all futuristic, that was not at all.
Good point. I gotta be honest with you, I have said before that every time I've seen this movie since the theater, I've liked it less and less. Mm-hmm. And I know we're completely talking over this because we're making a podcast, but yes. I'm really enjoying this, more so than I did the last time I saw it.
Oh, that's good,
by quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying watching
As we're analyzing it, I'm finding more things I really liked about it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a huge thing it had over Enterprise. It's colorful.
Yes. You can see what's going on. That's
what people complain about with the lens flares, that it made it difficult to see what's going on.
You know, again, I'm watching this movie, and I noticed them in the beginning when you said that, and I haven't seen any since, but it's me.
It's been all over it. They seem to be there to obstruct things so that you never get a really, really clear view of things, and I don't know. I don't know why that's supposed to be cool in a movie, but a lot of movies do that, where it's the director trying to have complete control so that you only see what he wants you to at any given point.
Yeah.
I can see the logic behind that.
Uh-huh.
But again, I think it's not giving the audience enough credit. I think that it's... By the way, this scene with the Enterprise coming out of Saturn looks really neat.
Yeah.
And it's not something you get a lot, because you don't usually have the Enterprise in our solar system.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's one of those things where if you're too... I think that it's a bad idea to be too worried in Star Trek that you're showing too much on screen at once.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's not giving the audience enough credit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do my annoying title thing.
Okay.
I don't like the title of this film.
Star Trek.
Yeah. I like the idea of calling a film just Star Trek, but I don't think it fits this movie. Yeah. Because they don't. Trek
to the stars. They don't go anywhere. They're in our solar system, and they're on Vulcan, which isn't very far away.
Name one moment in the movie that there's a mention of exploration.
Actually, at the beginning, I think the Kelvin's just investigating that rift in space, isn't it? It's not exploration. It's just check out that green glowing glob thing over there.
Yeoman Smith, go check that out. Pike talks about Starfleet as a peace-going operation.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember any point where they talk about seeking out new life and new civilization. There's nothing about it.
No. Well, it certainly doesn't happen.
I'm just saying that if you didn't know anything about Star Trek whatsoever, you wouldn't know that that's what they do.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that's what the Enterprise is for.
Yeah. And that's really weird.
Until the end,
yeah.
when they do the speech thing, because it's Star Trek and they have to.
Yeah.
So you have to. So if the sequel doesn't do it, I'm going to be very upset.
Yeah. Although that is something that I have a big problem with in many of the Star Trek films. I'm not saying all of them do it, but most of them are. Oh, there's a big threat heading toward Earth. We have to stop it.
Yes.
So we don't go anywhere. We just fight this giant crazy thing coming toward Earth.
The difference is, and I think they missed the boat on this.
Uh-huh.
The difference is with this, we only have a movie because there's no show on right now.
Right.
In the other Star Trek movies, there was at least a series that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, yes, with the first 4, there wasn't a series on at the same time, but we at least had the original series. You had those episodes you could go back and watch with the same actors and those characters.
Yeah.
And that's what they did in those. In the movies, the idea is we gotta step it up because it's a movie. You know what I mean? So we gotta have these more big, grandiose plots.
Yeah, and what's bigger than stopping a threat to Earth?
Exactly.
But
you don't have to do it every time I'm with you.
It gets old.
It does get old.
Yep.
You need stakes, but you need personal stakes. That's what science fiction is about.
And you can be fighting a giant amoeba out in space on the edge of the galaxy and still have personal stakes and have it be big and you care about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be Earth.
One thing about trying to make Star Trek look futuristic now and still make it recognizable as Star Trek is that you can do things like they did with the bridge and have that shot of San Francisco is awesome.
Yeah.
You can do the holographics and all of that, but you can never have a communicator that seems futuristic ever again.
That's so true. Yeah.
Phasers will always seem realistic or futuristic until we get the actual, energy weapons in real life with our police or with our military.
That'll be cool. But
yeah, sure.
But that's a little ways down the road, I'm sure.
But yeah, these sets look amazing.
Yeah.
I just thought of something else with the title thing.
Uh-huh.
I think that with this new franchise, they should stay completely away from subtitles in their titles.
You think so?
I do, because we had Star Trek the Motion Picture, we had Star Trek the Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 2 the Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 3, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I think that it would be fine to have a new series that was Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3.
That's interesting.
I think it would totally work.
Yeah.
I think they should completely stay away from subtitles. Because it's a new franchise. You can start over with numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you think if they... I don't know if they do this, but what if they wanted, like Batman's doing this time around, where they're not going Batman...
Where they're not putting Star Trek even in the title?
What would you think if they did that? Like, the sequel's just, called... I mean...
I think that would be a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Because I think that it would be... I think for whatever reason it works with Batman in a way it doesn't work with Star Trek. Mm-hmm. I don't know, though. It depends on what the title was.
Yeah.
It could be really interesting, but I'll put it to you this way. They tried it with Enterprise, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
They tried it with Enterprise.
Yeah, but the problem is at the same time, Enterprise was trying to get away from Star Trek and not be continuous with what came before. So... I mean,
or at least they were trying to get away with embellishments. But yeah.
Yeah, you might have fans who'd be worried about the same thing happening if Star Trek wasn't in the title of the next film.
Yeah, they just don't even want it to be Star Trek. I wouldn't put it past Abrams to try that.
Yeah.
But they would have to have the perfect title.
They would have to.
There's one way I could see it.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying I would want this, because I've gone on record several times to say I don't want to see Khan in this universe. I just don't want to see them even mess with Khan.
Yeah.
But... the one thing I could see is calling a movie The Wrath of Khan and not have Star Trek in the title. That would sell fine. You'd have no problem with it.
Well, yeah.
I'm just saying that from a commercial standpoint, that's the only thing I can think of that you could get. Yeah, because Enterprise was already done. I don't know what else you would call it that would be right. Like The Dark Knight is like a big subtitle for Batman. That's something that I cannot do a commentary without bringing up Batman.
Well, he's everywhere. Batman is ubiquitous. Maybe. I mean, the problem is that there are so many titles that became like show enders for like TNG and Voyager.
Right.
I mean, or even Enterprise. I mean, Boldly Going, or just if you pulled something from the...
I can't think of anything that wouldn't be silly.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know.
This is another one of those things that just bugs me a little bit, where they're trying to kind of do references, but they don't want to alienate the audience. So not references, but here's what I mean. They have Nero say, "Hey, now I recognize you from the the history books. Hey, I mean from seeing your picture in places and stuff. You're James T. Kirk. You went on to command the Enterprise, but that's another life. Why couldn't he have like a mention of like a real of like a specific thing?
Yeah,
that would have been nice. Wouldn't you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Although, okay, Nero is a minor.
On Romulus.
How much Federation history does he read?
Could he possibly know?
From 100 years before he was born.
I don't know why he would ever have heard of Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Kirk would be... I don't know. Kirk did some major stuff with the Romulans. I could see the Romulans knowing who Kirk was.
He didn't do that much with the Romulans.
Not like Picard with the Klingons.
Yeah,
well... Not like Picard with the Romulans,
Yeah, Picard with the Romulans.
As soon as I said that, I thought, wait a minute.
With the Klingons, because they were actually at war, and Romulans were kind of they were far off, we didn't really have contact with them kind of people.
The only thing I could think of would be 6.
Yeah. Because
there was a Romulan ambassador involved in that, and the Romulans had a huge stake in the Klingons making a alliance with the Federation, and Kirk ultimately made that work. So I could see them knowing him from things like that.
It would
but
still be
only
obscure.
by name. Like, I don't know why he would. I don't know why he would pop up in like a class or something where you'd see his picture in like a Romulan class or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked over it. I think we already maybe had it, but Nero has this bit where he walks around and he goes, Spock! And I love that. I just think it's hilarious. That's his one really great like evil villain moment.
Yeah.
I should mention what. By the way, that's kind of fun, Kirk, right there. I got your gun. I love that. Chris Pine is the consummate action hero.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really. I love how he channels Shatner, but he doesn't channel Shatner.
Yeah.
You know, he's not doing a Shatner impression, but he's everything Shatner was.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's very charismatic.
Extremely charismatic. I love him. And with interviews and stuff, he's so down to earth.
Uh-huh.
Chris Pine is a really neat guy from everything I've seen of him.
Yeah.
And quick plug once again for the Captain's movie. Oh, and of course, Fire Everything. That's another great villain. Fire everything! And when he says everything, he means everything.
Yeah, and just how many weapons are on a mining ship?
Well, how absurdly huge is that ship? You can put a planet in it!
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was just going to mention first of all that Chris Pine, yeah, I know,
fireworks.
Chris Pine in his interview with Shatner in the Captain's movie is great, and I really enjoy watching him. But yeah, I don't get how you could possibly have that many photon torpedoes on a ship.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that's what those are.
I would assume. I mean, not sure what else they'd be.
So. Is it weird to you? I meant to mention this a lot earlier, but is it weird to you that they wouldn't have just gone for the SETI eels?
That was always weird to me.
They felt the need to make up something else that was exactly the same thing.
Well, it wasn't
except it went into his mouth.
The same. It goes into his mouth, and it looks like it's more of a torture device than a mind-controlling device.
Okay, fair enough.
But the problem is it looks almost identical, and I don't know. It's just they can't.
No, it was slimy. The SETI eels weren't slimy.
Well, they were in the desert. This one was pulled out of a jar. I mean, they were shaped the same. I mean, they still have the pincher things in front. I
do feel the need to mention this because a lot of people don't catch it. Probably the coolest subtle thing in the soundtrack. You know me, I love soundtrack, and I have to mention this. When they finally beam in and they've rescued Pike. You get the traditional Star Trek bum 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 as they beam. It's part of the soundtrack there, and I just love that.
Yeah,
it's so cool. If it takes a tiny drop of red matter to destroy a planet, because they say that.
Yes,
it doesn't take. Why does Spock bring gallons of it?
Yeah, and they're right next to Earth right here, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, how does this affect Earth?
How is it that
it's a black hole in the middle of our solar system?
Well, yeah. In the movies, in the early movies, we're told that you're not supposed to go warp in the solar system. We should talk some more about that crazy science stuff in a second. But this is that point where Kirk does kind of the heroic thing, and I like that, but what he says here doesn't make any sense at all. He's trying to do the peaceful negotiating thing, but he says it might be the only way to achieve peace with Romulus. And
Romulus doesn't even know about this yet. And
this guy would be a total rogue anyway.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even believe him when he said he came from the future. I mean, he's totally rogue.
Yeah.
If you were Nero, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to just go back in time and stop your planet from exploding, as opposed to destroy everybody else's planet?
Well, you'd think.
Like you're going back in time. Like I just thought of this. That's the other thing that doesn't make sense about this kind of revenge motive. You have the ability to go back in time. You can stop it.
Yeah.
And you're treating it like there's no hope.
Yeah.
See, we get this slow motion look at him that's supposed to be kind of like Khan when he died. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, when Khan died, we felt something.
Yeah.
This guy, he's just a psychopath that I wanted to see die scenes ago.
Yeah, before he destroyed Vulcan.
Exactly. Okay, so now the black hole sucks in the ship.
Well, because it's, gallons and gallons of red matter, I guess.
But why isn't it sucking in Earth?
That's
or
my
the other
question.
surrounding planets? It's probably close enough to Saturn
Yeah.
and other planets to suck them in.
Well, Saturn's gone.
Saturn's gone.
We have no
Yeah.
more moon.
we have nothing. And we're going to lose the entire solar system, and Spock still isn't going to think about going back in time to resolve this.
Yeah.
I just think all that is hokey. So again, I have mentioned a couple of these sciencey things, and understand, let me reiterate that I am a huge science fiction fan, and I don't know jack about science. I have probably said something during this podcast that made no sense, and I don't even know it, okay? And this stuff bothers me. My point is, people have, when I've talked to folks that aren't big Star Trek fans about this movie, and I've complained about things like that, they're like, oh, you're just nitpicking. And I'm like, but it takes you out of the movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's too giantly ridiculous.
If something doesn't logically follow, you can't follow the film where it's trying to take you. Your mind, it's taken out of the movie, and you have to try to resolve it in your brain before you can go forward. And that's not supposed to happen in a good film.
And what people have said to me when I've said something like that, when I've said, well, I'm not getting enough suspension of disbelief in this movie, is they say, well, it's a movie about the characters. And I like the characters, so I don't care about all that sciencey stuff. And I say, okay, what you're saying to me when you say that is that it's okay to completely contrive everything else as long as you like the characters in the movie, as if you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you really ought to have one without the other. But you know what I'm saying? As if I don't know, I'm not making any sense.
As long as the problem is that you can have good characters. These characters are very likable.
It's as if
but
it's like if we need a contrivance to make it happen, then if we need a huge contrivance, that's okay.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you don't.
Yeah.
You can make the science stuff work. They're lazy. They're not trying. They don't care about that part.
Yeah. You just needed to talk it out a bit more and have a couple more drafts, and
That's
it
it.
probably would have worked.
Yeah, but that wasn't the focus.
Yeah.
And my point is, where I call BS a little bit, is that the focus is in selling tickets.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some great stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that the filmmakers are putting together the movie that they think will get people into the seats more than making a movie where I can get lost in the reality of it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. All of the moments that I really, really love are just in scene kind of moments.
Yes.
They almost work out of context. A lot
Yeah.
of them. That bit when they get out of the black hole, where they do that slow motion thing where they show everybody smiling. Very TOS.
Yeah.
Loved everything about that.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the situation around it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And so-
it would not have taken very much more to make this movie a step up from good into great or fantastic. This could have been something that both Trekkies and non-Trekkies would have thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you can make a smart movie. You can make a movie that is correct within the Star Trek universe while still not talking over the heads of people who have not seen the show.
And even getting away from just doesn't mesh with the rest of the Trek universe, at least don't do like throwaway things that sound like a bad video game plot, like a supernova that's going to destroy the galaxy.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just hokey. It doesn't make any sense.
I think it would have been better and even more effective if it's just okay. It's the star for the Romulan star system, or solar system, and it's gonna go supernova and blow up Romulus and Remus. Okay,
I don't know why they had to go that far.
It'd be enough for the Federation to get involved on that. I mean, it's not like people hate Romulans.
Sometimes with things like this, it's as if somebody in a writing class told people told whoever's writing your movie, I guess in this case Orsi and Kurtzman. By the way, yay for Pike in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
But it's like somebody told Orsi and Kurtzman in a writing class
Yeah.
that you need big stakes
Yeah.
to make your conflict dramatic and to make the characters believable.
Yeah.
And that's true. But it has to make sense.
Yeah, it does have to make sense. And sometimes something smaller than giant stakes that you can't get your mind around
it
are more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah, the stakes that you care about a lot more are really immediate kinds of dangers that are really personal kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now, yes, Spock losing his planet is a really big deal, but it works better because he lost his mother.
Yes.
For instance,
Uh-huh.
Using an example from this very film.
Yeah.
But Nero loses his family and his whole his whole planet, and then so now the threat just naturally has to be we're going to lose the entire Federation. Why?
Yeah.
Are the stakes not big enough if he just simply wants to
kill Spock and everybody Spock knew,
or
just
Spock,
or just Spock, yeah,
or just young Spock in the past.
Yeah.
So now we got this alien thing wearing a Starfleet uniform.
Why?
And that's silly, and so he's probably going to be in the sequel.
I hope not.
He's in the comics.
Really?
Yep.
Does he talk?
I don't remember. I don't think he does. Maybe he does. I forget.
Yeah.
I forget. He hasn't been in very many panels, but
I don't agree.
I'm talking about these current new comics that are going on right now.
I don't agree with having characters that don't even communicate to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean,
so now we get the speech, and it's old Spock just like it ought to be.
yeah.
That makes it, the second or third time in the movies that we had him do this?
Ooh, I'm trying to think.
He did it at the end of 2.
Yeah.
Did he do it in 3? That's what I can't remember.
It's been a while since I've watched 3. I try to remember. I don't.
He did do it in 2.
I know he did it. Yeah. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check. I guess we'll find out when we do more of these commentaries.
Yeah, I guess so too. I gotta be honest with you. This is gonna. I can't believe I'm admitting this, but when I saw this in the theater and we got to these closing credits and this theme came up, I had a bit of a tear. I gotta be honest with you. Yeah, that was kind of a big deal for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just hearing it big and bombastic in a theater. I don't know if it was the way he arranged it, but it's pretty.
Yeah. No, it is.
And
I do like what they're showing on screen with the planets zooming in past the stars
but it in no way whatsoever goes with the movie we just watched.
No, it doesn't. It's more Star Trek than the plot.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't about exploring. It wasn't about going anywhere.
No.
Did it have to be?
Well,
not necessarily.
No, if it had been a little bit more on the science fiction heavy end.
I guess maybe part of the issue for me is that the movie, the plot of the movie is about making the movie work, and that makes it that gives me the same problem I have with a lot of origin pictures with superheroes and stuff.
Yeah.
Now
it really just it's an origin film, but it's not for superheroes. It's for Star Trek.
Yeah, except that it's and it's even weirder because of course it's a it's a new origin.
Yeah.
For something we had before that we didn't even really need an origin for.
Yeah.
In the first place. Again, I love the idea behind it, but it's not really a story in a lot of that's not fair. There is definitely a very, very good character arc for both Spock and Kirk, and so there's a story there, most certainly. But the actual events of the film are kind of just a background. It's like an excuse to get those characters to the emotional places that they need to be, rather than it coming out of something that felt fluid.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And my question is, at the end, so they're cadets, but does Kirk get to be captain now?
Yes.
And Spock gets to be first officer?
Yeah, they just automatically all go up in rank.
Yeah.
To wherever they were in the show.
So now...
Automatically.
Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah, I think it is too.
a little too easy.
Way too easy. But again, it's because of where the priorities were.
Yeah.
For the people making the movie. And they've gotten some flack, Orson Kurtzman and Abrams especially, they've gotten some flack for not taking the material nearly seriously enough.
Yeah.
They have jokey, punny names for all of the tracks of the soundtrack in the on the CD.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, I'll have to take a look at that.
I'll bring up iTunes and see if I can find it real quick while we're still recording. This should be a really long credits.
Yeah.
So we can probably look at it. But yeah, things like that, and I even and I have to be honest with you, I have not listened to the commentary on this, Abrams' commentary, because a lot of my Trek fans, well, not a lot of them, a couple in Star Trek Club, in our Star Trek Club, mentioned it, and were so appalled by some of the things he said that it ruined the movie for them.
Oh, really?
And so I haven't listened to it yet because I don't want that to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it would, and I don't want to take it too crazy seriously or anything.
Yeah.
But like he was just too disrespectful to the franchise on the whole for some people.
Oh,
but I'm saying that having not listened to it.
That'd be too bad if that's the case, but...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've been told that he said was that he considered recording the ending thing, the Space of the Final Frontier, instead of Nimoy himself.
Oh, really?
Yes. And then he's recording that because he's just super full of himself and it's his movie. But like apparently, I think it was Orson Kurtzman. I'm not sure who else was recording it with him, but one of them said something. One of them brought that up and said, "Well, you thought about doing that," and he said, "No, that was just a joke." But you got the sense that it wasn't.
Yeah.
But again, that's alleged. I've not listened to it.
Yeah.
And I probably ought to. It would have been nice to have had that while we talked about this, but again, I've been afraid of it. But yeah, so here are the titles that they named the tracks on the soundtrack for this: Nailin' the Kelvin, Labor of Love, Hella Bartok, Enterprising Young Men, Nearsighted. Some of these are okay, but Does It Still McFly? Yeah. Yeah, they made a Back to the Future reference in the middle of their Star Trek soundtrack. Nero Death Experience. Nero Fiddles, Narada Burns. Back from Black. That New Car Smell.
Wow.
Yeah. See what I mean?
Yeah.
You see why they're getting some flack for not taking the material,
Wow.
seriously enough?
That's really surprising, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, it's something jokey where, I'd be like, oh, well, okay, that's cute, but people are overreacting, but those are just out there.
Compare that to the soundtrack for Batman Begins, where they're all Latin.
And that's
where they're
awesome.
like, I think it's Latin, but where they're trying to make it sound like really sophisticated.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, are you afraid for the sequel? Are you just curious to see what's going to happen with it?
I am curious to see what's going to happen with it, because the problem is, this being the first in a new franchise, and this trying to boot out of old continuity and please new fans at the same time, bring new fans in, it's really hard to make a movie like this.
Yeah, and that's a really fair thing to say, is that we're dogging on it for that, but at the same time, how do you do that?
Right, and so I think the direction this is actually going to go will be shown when we get the sequel.
I think so,
and
too.
so I'm holding out for that. We'll see if it goes into more of a true Star Trek direction, or if it goes more off in a action flick, please the fans, light show sort of direction, or if it just stays down the middle, trying to please everybody. It could be anything. We don't know.
I doubt that they're going to care that much after this one about pleasing the original Trekkies.
But I can hope.
Sure. I'm just saying, when their first one was successful, why would they have to?
Yeah.
It's not going to be important now to the success of the franchise.
Right.
But
they could get a writer on board for whom it's important to him.
Sure. Some really optimistic Trek fans have said, well, maybe after this we'll get a really cerebral. I don't see it.
Yeah. It would really be nice. But...
Sure, but and again, you know, it was a fun. I didn't know this that at the end it said in memory of Gene and Majel Barrett Roddenberry.
That's really cool.
That's great. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for listening. I'm sure we've got a million other things we could say.
I'm sure.
I hope we didn't just talk in circles, but anyway, thanks a lot for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And we'll talk to you next time.